Usually when you are dealing with a medical diagnosis, you kind of expect um, some sort of surgical precision.
Right, like a clear-cut answer.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, there it is.
It's visible, it's categorized.
Yeah, and honestly, that's comforting. But if you are navigating age-related fertility, well, that x-ray machine is basically broken.
Totally. You get handed this clinical shorthand that is just completely murky.
You hear things like, your ovarian reserve is low, or your egg quality is poor.
Which, I mean, it leaves you with a label, but zero map of the actual territory.
Which is exactly why you and I are going to build that map today. We're doing a deep dive into a massive stack of materials published by the Berkeley Center for Reproductive Wellness.
Right, focusing specifically on their integrative approaches to age-related ovarian decline.
And just to set the ground rules for you listening, we're looking at this objectively. We aren't here to endorse specific medical treatments or say one viewpoint is better than another.
Exactly. Our mission is strictly to unpack the biology, the claims, and, the clinical evidence they present regarding acupuncture and customized herbal medicine.
Right. We are treating the source material as a fascinating biological hypothesis.
And just looking strictly at the mechanics it proposes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the central conflict in this text is that women in their late 30s and 40s are given these terrifying, cold lab results.
Like low AMH and high FSH.
Yeah, exactly. But they rarely get a plain English explanation of why the ovarian environment is failing.
Let alone what they can actually do about it.
Right. So let's jump straight into the cellular problem first.
Yeah, let's bypass the standard biology textbook stuff about, how many eggs you were born with.
Because the text argues the real issue isn't just numerical attrition, right?
Exactly. It's a microscopic energy crisis. It really comes down to profound mitochondrial failure.
Which makes sense, considering eggs are like some of the most energy-demanding cells in the human body.
Oh, they require massive voltage. The text points to a 2019 study in Frontiers in Endocrinology that shows this.
What did they find?
It shows the primary driver of age-related decline is actually damage to the mitochondrial DNA from reactive oxygen species, or ROS.
And those are basically just free radicals, right?
Yeah.
Generated by normal cellular metabolism.
Yeah, exactly. In a young ovarian environment, the body's antioxidant defenses sweep them up effortlessly.
But as the ecosystem ages, those defenses falter.
Right. ROS accumulates, and the mitochondrial DNA gets absolutely battered.
I was reading this and trying to visualize the sheer scale of the energy required. It really reminds me of trying to run a massive critical operating system update on your smartphone when the battery's at like 1%.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Yeah, because if the battery dies mid-update, you don't just get a paused download, you get corrupted files. The whole system crashes.
And in biology in the ovary, that critical system update is meiosis.
Right, the sorting of chromosomes.
Exactly. Sorting exactly 23 chromosomes so the egg can meet a sperm cell and create a healthy 46-chromosome embryo requires huge energy. It uses a physical cellular machine called the spindle apparatus.
So think of the spindle apparatus as a set of microscopic ropes that physically pull the chromosomes apart and align them.
And pulling those ropes is entirely dependent on those failing mitochondrial batteries we just talked about.
So when the energy output drops due to that ROS damage, the spindle apparatus basically stumbles.
Right. It physically misaligns the chromosomes. The result is aneuploidy, which is an egg with too many or too few chromosomes.
That is your corrupted file.
Exactly. And aneuploid eggs fail to fertilize, fail to implant, or they lead to early miscarriage.
Okay, that explains the egg itself. But what stood out to me in the text is that it's not just this one isolated cell sitting in a vacuum going bad.
No, not at all. What's fascinating here is how the source frames the entire ovarian environment. The whole neighborhood basically becomes hostile due to oxidative stress.
Right, like the granulosa cells.
Yeah, take the granulosa cells. They don't just surround the egg. They are its life support system.
They nurse the egg.
Exactly. They form physical bridges called gap junctions directly into the egg, pumping in critical nutrients, proteins, and developmental signals.
Like a direct IV line.
Right. And the text explains that oxidative stress physically destroys these gap junctions. It shortens the telomeres.
The chromosome caps.
Yeah. It even promotes premature cell death, or apoptosis, within the granulosa cells themselves.
Wow, so the egg isn't just running out of internal battery power. Its external power grid is being actively demolished.
So when a reproductive endocrinologist runs day 3 labs and sees, rising FSH and plummeting AMH, they aren't just looking at an arbitrary countdown clock.
They're reading the smoke signals of this specific hostile ecosystem.
Exactly. The brain is pumping out more follicle-stimulating hormone because the ovary is struggling to respond.
And the anti-Müllerian hormone drops because the pool of healthy follicles is shrinking in that toxic environment.
The text is adamant about this. These numbers are measurable fingerprints of oxidative stress. They aren't necessarily a permanent dead end.
Which is a massive pivot from how those numbers are usually presented in a standard clinic.
It really is.
Because the source argues that while you can't reverse chronological time, you can actually rehabilitate the environment.
And their first major physiological intervention to do that is acupuncture.
But they frame it very differently, not just as a relaxation tool.
Right. The text leans heavily on biomedical research here, framing acupuncture as a hard physiological intervention.
Let's look at the mechanics, though, because sticking needles in the skin to fix a mitochondrial energy crisis deep in the ovary sounds like a massive leap.
It does sound wild, but it bridges the gap through the nervous system and the vascular network.
Okay, how so?
Well, the text cites a 2023 systematic review from Frontiers in Endocrinology confirming acupuncture dramatically increases ovarian blood flow.
And it does that by actively inhibiting sympathetic nerve activity, right?
Exactly. It calms the stress response that constricts blood vessels. Because when the body is in a high-stress state, it clamps down on blood flow to reproductive organs.
And sends it to the muscles instead.
Right. So acupuncture forces vasodilation. It forces the blood vessels wide open.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because the text brings receipts on this.
Yeah.
They point to the landmark 2002 IVF study by Dr. Wolfgang Paulus in fertility and sterility.
Ah, the Paulus trial.
Yeah. They looked at 160 women undergoing IVF. Half received acupuncture immediately before and after the embryo transfer, and half didn't.
And the results were stark.
Yeah, the control group had a clinical pregnancy rate of 26.3%, but the acupuncture group hit 42.5%.
It's a huge difference.
Right. Now, I have to push back hard on this. A jump of over 16 percentage points from 2 sessions of needles. That sounds like a statistical fluke.
That's a fair question.
How is that mechanically possible? And more importantly, did anyone ever replicate it? Or is the text just cherry-picking one miracle study?
Well, the Paulus study was definitely groundbreaking, but the text certainly doesn't stop there.
Okay.
They back it up with a 2023 meta-analysis involving almost 800 patients across 13 randomized controlled trials.
So it definitely wasn't an isolated fluke.
No, the data consistently shows statistically significant reductions in FSH levels and meaningful increases in AMH and antral follicle counts.
Wow.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of the failing mitochondrial batteries we just discussed, the mechanism becomes incredibly clear.
Because mitochondria are entirely dependent on oxygen and nutrients to generate that voltage for the spindle apparatus.
Exactly. By forcing those vessels open and inhibiting the sympathetic nervous system, acupuncture restores the supply lines.
So you're flushing out the accumulated reactive oxygen species.
Right, and delivering a massive payload of fresh oxygen to cells that have literally been suffocating.
You are repowering the grid.
It changes the entire baseline environment. The text even notes it directly reduces markers of oxidative stress in the ovarian tissue,
which protects those vital nursing granulosa cells from dying off.
It halts the premature apoptosis completely.
Okay, so acupuncture widens the highway and gets the blood flowing. But that immediately makes me wonder something.
What's that?
If the blood itself is full of those same damaging free radicals, aren't we just delivering the poison faster?
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like, how do we change what is actually in the blood being delivered to the ovaries? Which leads directly to the source's second intervention.
Customized herbal medicine.
Right. And the absolute necessity of customization is the core of this approach.
They draw a hard line against over-the-counter, standardized fertility supplements.
Yeah, taking a generic OTC supplement is basically like dropping generic fire retardant out of an airplane over a massive forest.
It might hit something, but it is sloppy.
And often ineffective. What the text describes with customized herbal medicine is more like sending in a hotshot crew who knows exactly which specific trees are burning.
Right, they know the wind conditions, whether to use water, dirt, or a backburn.
They are adjusting the formula based on daily hormonal lab values.
The text uses a really stark clinical comparison to illustrate this. Take a 43-year-old patient with elevated FSH and severe circulatory insufficiency.
Yeah.
Her physiological landscape is entirely different from a 37-year-old who has low AMH driven by, say, systemic inflammation and immune overactivity.
Giving them the exact same generalized pill makes zero sense biologically.
It misses the cellular target completely. Custom formulation allows the practitioner to address the specific biochemical pathways driving the decline in that specific individual.
Let's dig into the cellular action, though, because I am highly skeptical here.
About the herbs.
Yeah, about how drinking a tea or taking a capsule of herbs actually alters genetic aging inside an egg.
It does sound like a stretch at first.
Right. How do these compounds survive the harsh environment of human digestion, pass through the liver, and make it all the way to the ovary to do anything useful?
Well, the source details that the active biochemical compounds in these herbs aren't just sitting there whole in the body. Once digested, they act as powerful signaling molecules.
Okay.
So when they enter the bloodstream, which, remember, acupuncture is actively channeling to the reproductive organs, they trigger the body's endogenous antioxidant systems.
Oh, I see. So they act as a systemic chemical reset switch.
Exactly. They aren't just delivering antioxidants directly, they are telling the body to ramp up its own defenses.
To rearm things like glutathione to neutralize the ROS.
Right at the cellular level, this throws a protective shield over the granulosa cells and the mitochondrial DNA.
And the text says other specific herbs in the custom formulas contain compounds proven to regulate hormonal pathways.
Yeah, or to downregulate inflammatory cytokines.
The clinical evidence they present for this is actually pretty robust. They cite a PubMed randomized controlled trial with 433 subjects.
And that study showed customized herbs measurably improved the rates of high-quality embryos and clinical pregnancies during IVF.
They also highlight a fascinating 2023 case report from Science Direct.
Oh, the one about the live birth.
Yeah. It documented a successful live birth in a patient of advanced maternal age with severe diminished ovarian reserve.
Which is a category of patient that modern reproductive endocrinology often considers incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to treat with their own eggs.
Exactly. Looking at the randomized trials and cellular mechanics is great. But let's see how this multimodal approach actually plays out for real patients facing the clock.
Right, the acupuncture plus the herbs plus the traditional medicine.
The text provided a couple of detailed case reviews. Let's look at Sarah's case.
Okay, Sarah was 41 and facing a brutal clinical reality. She had 2 failed IVF cycles behind her.
And her AMH was sitting at a critically low 0.4.
While her FSH had spiked to 18, she had been advised by her clinical team to just move to donor eggs.
But the text says she committed to 4 months of targeted herbal medicine and twice-weekly acupuncture.
And the protocols were specifically designed to target her poor ovarian blood flow and regulate the nervous system to drop that FSH.
So what were the actual results?
After those 4 months, her physiological markers physically changed. Her FSH dropped from 18 to 11.
Wow.
And her AMH rose from 0.4 to 0.7.
This rehabilitated environment basically allowed her to proceed with a third IVF cycle where they retrieved 4 eggs.
Which was double her previous attempts. They developed 2 blastocysts, and she ultimately delivered a healthy baby boy at 42.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Then there's Michelle's case. She was 38 with a completely different physiological profile.
Right, she had normal ovarian reserve numbers.
But she had suffered 3 first-trimester miscarriages.
Because her doctors suspected chromosomal aneuploidy.
That spindle apparatus failure caused by mitochondrial damage we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Michelle's primary issue wasn't just age. It was severe systemic inflammation and chronic anxiety disrupting her hormonal signaling.
So her bespoke herbal formula wasn't focused on blood flow like Sarah's. It was built to target the inflammatory cytokines.
Combined with timed acupuncture to lower her sympathetic nervous system response.
And after 5 months, she conceived naturally and had a healthy daughter.
Now, the text is careful to include the caveat that individual results vary, obviously.
Of course, these are specific case studies.
But they vividly illustrate the core thesis. You can rehabilitate the environment to rescue the remaining eggs.
So what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at the clinic behind all this data, you see an operation built on personal experience.
Right, the Berkeley Center for Reproductive Wellness in NYC.
Yeah, the founder, Mike Berkeley, started this entire journey because of his own severe fertility struggles.
He had poor sperm morphology and motility, and his wife had anti-sperm antibodies.
And they actually used these exact methods to conceive. He founded the center in 1997.
What the text emphasizes heavily here is his collaborative model.
This is so crucial. It's not an us versus them, Eastern versus Western medicine turf war at all.
Not in the slightest. The text is incredibly clear that the center actively collaborates with traditional reproductive endocrinologists and OBGYNs.
Patients use these integrative methods to prepare their bodies for IVF or IUI, basically optimizing the cellular environment before the doctor goes in to retrieve the eggs.
This raises an important question about how modern medicine defines diminished reserve.
Are these permanent dead ends?
Exactly. Or, as the text suggests, are they just measurable fingerprints of an ecosystem that can be cleaned up and rehabilitated?
That really brings us to the key takeaways for you listening today. Age undeniably affects the ovarian environment.
Right, through oxidative stress and mitochondrial decline.
We walk through how it cripples the spindle apparatus and starves the granulosa cells.
But the evidence presented in this text argues that this decline is not a fixed, unchangeable trajectory.
By using acupuncture to restore blood flow, combined with customized herbal medicine to neutralize free radicals, it is entirely possible to optimize the remaining eggs.
You can actually lower FSH, raise AMH, and meaningfully boost the odds of both IVF and natural conception outcomes.
Our goal today was basically to bypass the information overload and translate the actual biology for you, so these options aren't just mysterious alternative therapies.
We want you to understand the how and the why grounded in cellular mechanics.
And to that end, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Something that pushes just a bit beyond the text itself.
Okay, what is it?
The source notes that a woman is born with all of her eggs. So a 40-year-old's eggs have been sitting in the ovaries, absorbing 40 years of physiological history.
Stress, diet, environmental toxins, systemic inflammation.
Exactly. It's a massive cumulative burden.
A huge burden.
But if an egg's developmental competence can be so heavily influenced and improved just by changing its environment in the few short months prior to ovulation.
By repowering the grid, like we said.
Right. How much of what we accept as irreversible cellular aging is actually just accumulated yet highly reversible environmental stress?
Wow. It completely reframes how we view biological decline. It implies the present environment holds way more power than decades of past history.
It turns out that diagnostic X-ray machine isn't broken after all. You just can't use it to look at a frozen snapshot of a single moment in time.
You have to look at the whole flowing, living ecosystem.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.